Good morning, Megan. How are
Good morning.
you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, this week's episode of Coffee with Kalea, we are talking about volunteering. Before we get into all of that, maybe we should do a little recap of our last episode. And we've had some really great engagement around the topic of resilience within our Kalea community on our social media platforms. So that's been really wonderful. And we left that episode with two of our words for the week: simplify and organize. So Megan, your word was organize. How did you do with that word this week?
You know what? I did fairly well. I took on two projects that I really got into. I feel like organized could be my word for the month, not just a week. But I did get my garage organized. So there's places for all the bikes and all of the outside things. Then I also did my laundry room and took out a paintbrush. So I was able to do a couple
Awesome.
fun things in there as well as organize it. I find laundry is one of those things that just never quite gets caught up on in this family, but I think that's pretty common. How about you? How was
Sure.
your simplify mission?
Simplify. So I think you're correct when you said throughout the week that when you select a word, you're more mindful of your actions and behaviors, and if they align with that word. So, I think I did great with it. It's one of those things that I had a lot of work tasks that I could easily have made more complicated than what they had to be. So I was happy with the way I simplified it. With life at home, I kept things simple with meals, which was great, balanced but not too complicated. And I think just in general, whether it be communication or any decision making, keeping it simple has been helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
So
really
I think our listeners hopefully were able to apply these words to their week as well. And so today, as I mentioned, we're chatting about volunteering. We will share with you why we believe volunteering is so important in both a personal and a professional, and what we do before we make commitments. So Megan, why should we volunteer?
well, there's a plethora of reasons. And I think that it's really important to think about what you're volunteering for, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But I'll start with networking first and foremost. Networking has a bit of a stigma attached to it, I'll be honest. And when you hear the term networking, sometimes your instinct is almost to go, whoa, like, what do you mean network? Because it's really related to a lot of things like sales or making deals happen, or, there's sort of that business word associated with it. But I think we need to
Mm-hmm.
peel that back a lot and think about, instead of thinking about just it as a professional network, thinking about it as a personal network as well. So during a lot of my volunteering over the years, I've actually come out with a lot of wonderful relationships, including ours. We met through
Yes,
networking.
very thankful for that.
Me too. We were involved in the same organization and felt that it was very valuable to us as people. Um, it was based around career development, and it was based on, you know, moving forward in our life. But I think our takeaway was much greater than that. We weren't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily asking for anything from one another, but we were compatible and we were able to actually bring a lot to the table for each other.
Yes.
So when you think about building your network, I think it's important to really think about it as a long-term process.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing worse than going to these speed dating style networking events where
You fling a
you,
business card
you're flinging
across the
business.
table.
This isn't the type of networking we're referring to when we're talking about
Exactly.
volunteering. So
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest and very clear that the networking we're talking about is that long-term connection where you're able to get to know people beyond their title. And it's
Mm-hmm.
great to be able to pull on that network in your life. And there's a lot of future benefits to having a large network, which also has, social capital and all these other things associated. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to know that the purpose of the volunteering needs to go into how it makes you feel. It
Yes.
has to
Yeah.
be a feel good reason to volunteer, and networking is
Mhm.
a byproduct of good volunteering. And when you're
Right.
showing
And that
up with
human connection, right? Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that when you're really connecting with that group or organization you're volunteering with,
Mhm.
the networking comes naturally and
I
you're
agree.
able to connect and make long-term relationships. So
Mhm.
I think that that's one of the added benefits to volunteering. What would
Yes.
what would you take from that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I totally agree with you. The networking piece is definitely a huge driver of why I volunteer. And you're so right. Like I think it's more important to build those meaningful connections with people, get to know them in their personal life, what their children's names are, what their husband or wife do for a living. It's all those little details that, make for meaningful connections. And so networking would be at the top of my list as well. Um, One of the other reasons why I volunteer is to stretch my skill set. So, oftentimes, volunteering most often you don't get paid for. So, um, but it's such a great way to build up your skill set, where a lot of the things you're doing in a volunteer capacity can be transferred to what you do for paid work. So when you think of, and I know you've been involved in a number of fundraising events with your volunteer activities, but planning and executing a major fundraising event, like huge skills to develop there.
Absolutely.
Goal setting, planning, budgeting skills, um, and really, it's an opportunity to see best practices come to life, and how others in a variety of different industries kind of handle all of these skills as well.
Mhm.
Another thing, like, I guess, of course, leadership, teamwork, critical thinking skills, creativity, all those pieces. Um, they're all, part of that set that can be applied in the business world as well.
Ability.
Hmm.
So I also think that, another really great benefit to volunteering is the visibility that you can get.
Mm.
And I find that a really interesting thought because you don't actually know when people are paying attention. And
So true.
sometimes it's happened for me where I haven't felt that, maybe I'm contributing a lot or I'm sitting sort of on the sidelines listening more.
Mm.
And months later, you learn that everyone's been observing or watching what you've been doing. And
Hmm.
so from that, I think it's also important to identify the importance of being authentic in those roles that you're volunteering for.
I would agree with that.
And so another thing and on top of being authentic is it will show your passion and it will show if you're interested in the things that you're volunteering for.
Yes.
I know for me, for example, I've been in situations where you can tell those that are volunteering to get a check on their resume versus
Mm.
those that are volunteering because they're truly passionate about a cause or they're there for beyond that reference check.
Yeah, almost for the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah. Have you experienced that as well, where in the organizations you've been with?
Yeah, and I think you can tell a lot about just how a person really engages. So, are they showing up for meetings prepared? Are they really contributing, providing ideas? You can just tell engagement, and I think that just that genuine interest in a volunteer activity,
Yeah.
um, people can see through others, right? So if
Yeah.
you're volunteering for the wrong reasons, it won't take long for people to pick up on that. So.
Absolutely. And that visibility is linked into that networking as well, because when you're in a position where you're able to show up maybe a little bit differently than you would be in your professional capacity as well,
Hmm.
because the pressures are almost gone when you're in that volunteer role.
Yeah.
So naturally your guards down a little bit more, you're able to come through, be more genuine, and that's when you're expressing yourself in ways that sometimes allow you to flourish and work on
Hmm.
those skills like you were just saying, as another challenge. So it's
And that
all
just carries through. And once
absolutely.
you're, being real and all that in the volunteer capacity, then you're more able to just be open and yourself at work too. So it's all around really good. And I think that brings us like to my next reason for volunteering would be that purpose. What's meaningful about it to you, right? And I read somewhere that whatever you're doing in life, it has to give you that feeling in your chest, like this, like overwhelming, like drive and passion to do something. And if you're not feeling it, then it's probably not, meeting that purpose and why the why of why you're volunteering.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I couldn't
yeah.
agree more. That it's important to be sure that it's the right thing that you're
Mm-hmm.
volunteering for, and that get that kind of fire in the belly
Yes.
that you're talking about. I think in terms of, is this giving me joy? Is this
Mm-hmm.
worth the time? And I know that for me, giving that energy is, you have to be more careful because the time constraints are also more than they were 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
And so your availability changes,
Mm-hmm.
and that purpose really becomes paramount, as you were mentioning.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Any other reasons why you volunteer?
So I think that another really strong reason would be some self-discovery. I think
Mm,
that as you volunteer and be involved in various organizations or opportunities, you can learn a lot about yourself
yes.
and show up in ways that you never may have thought possible. And
Mm-hmm.
to link back to what you were talking about in terms of skill building, it's an opportunity to maybe hone in on a set of skills you want to practice, find out if it's interesting to you. You might be able to actually find out if there's something you maybe want to discover further. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
test if you're thinking of a career change, for example.
Right,
You
right.
might have an idea that this is what you want to do, but you have no idea what it entails.
Right.
So discovering through volunteering is a great way to test the waters, dip your toes in without
Mm-hmm.
making a huge life decision. Um, I don't know about you, but there's probably been instances for me that I've gone, okay, maybe that's not exactly what I thought it might be
Right.
after becoming more involved. And that's okay, because
Absolutely it is.
you're discovering more about your qualities and what's meaningful to you.
And I think that's, it is so true. I would have to agree with that. And I think too, for some of our listeners that may be just completing university and looking to start their career, oftentimes it's difficult to get that first job, right? Because you don't have that's those particular skills or that 5 years experience. But if you have volunteer experience and you're able to say, I did this and this and this and led this committee and this is the work that we did and accomplished, that is definitely employable.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
and employers would be looking at that and saying, oh my goodness, like you probably have more experience than others, right? But so
Hmm.
really raising your hand and stepping up to those activities and just like you said, learning more about yourself along the
Yeah.
way, and know there's always time in your life to maybe take on a little bit more or a little bit less, but
Well,
and
you're
then
so right there, Vanessa, because
mhm,
at one point I did feel a little guilty that I wasn't as involved
mhm.
as I once was. And there was almost like this little piece of me that had been lost, right? Like it was,
Because you were so involved in your
yeah.
university years and
And then
right.
it just sort of went away. And then it did come back, and it was really a nice way to come full circle. And I think that there's always opportunities to grow that involvement and stay. Life's, you know, got a lot in there to do.
Yes, well, there's a lot of years, and I think too, like if you're, and I will probably touch on this, but if you have if you're focused elsewhere, then you're not going to be really giving it, your best foot forward, right? When it
Yeah,
comes to any commitment, so better to say, I think I need to step down right now and take care of this aspect of my life, and then know that there's always an opportunity a little bit down the road. So
for
yeah,
sure. Oh my gosh, where does the time go? I think
I know.
I think we've given
We
enough.
could chat forever
I know
about it.
enough advice on boards and volunteering,
Volunteering, yeah.
but it is something that I know is very dear to our heart, and it
Yes.
really makes up And I will again reiterate how fortunate we are that we connected through an organization that we were both very passionate about back in the day. It seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it does. Some days it does. Yeah. A decade ago for sure. So
awesome. So I think we need to go with our word of the week.
We do. I've got mine. Do you have yours?
Oh, you know what? I keep thinking I'm going to have to do Organize 2.0.
Well, version 2.0.
Yeah.
Organize a different part of your house, right?
Yeah, no, I need another week. I think Organize has been a good word to cultivate, and I think, going into the end of May, then by June, I'll be able to select a new word. So I'm going to say Organize 2.0.
Perfect. That is a good plan. Good plan. Good plan. I'm going to go with Energize this week. So
love it.
Because that can be a lot of things. And for me, usually I need to recognize when I need to energize. So if I'm feeling like, whether just being standing up from my desk chair, or taking a 5-minute break, or paying really close attention to how many cups of water I have, or the food that I'm nourishing my body with, or making sure I get out for fresh air and, an hour walk. All of those things are ways that I energize myself and that I'll be even more mindful of over the week. So
did you listen to the Espresso of Self-Care podcast by
yeah, well, that inspired me. So thank you for inspiring me.
Oh my God. It was just funny. I was like, hey, that sounds very familiar.
There you go. See, we're helping each other.
Oh, I love it. Well, I hope that you have a great rest of the day, Vanessa.
Thank you. Enjoy your Sunday as well.
Thank you. And to all of you that have tuned into our Coffee with Kalea, thank you. And our ask today is that if you're enjoying what you're hearing, please share our episodes with your community. Also, if you'd like to listen to a podcast, we're available on so many different channels, whether it's Spotify or on your Apple devices. And hit subscribe so we know that
subscribe. Yes.
So that we know who's following us. We also, last thing I'll say before we tune out today is we do have a Facebook community page where we talk more in depth about our weekly topics and have some wonderful engagement with our members. So thank you.
Conversations have been amazing.
So nice, uplifting, positive. And Vanessa is an awesome moderator in there. So
I'm a good people taker. So
yeah, she'll get you. And we're just so happy to be spreading this positive energy with you all. So have a great Sunday, and we'll see you next week.
Happy Sunday.